My name is Grant. I'm 39 years old, and I live in Long Beach, California. I'm an aerospace engineer, the kind of guy who used to feel more comfortable with a torque wrench than a treadmill. But that changed last year. It started with a warning from my doctor. Get serious about your health, or else. So I got serious. I cut carbs, joined a strength program, and started running before sunrise. I dropped 37 pounds. My face changed. My energy changed. I barely recognized myself in the mirror in a good way. And honestly, it felt incredible. My wife, Beth, was supportive the whole way through. We've been together since we were 19, met in college, married young. She's now a middle school principal, all structure and steady nerves. Beth wasn't as into the workouts, but she'd join me sometimes for walks or yoga. She'd listen to me talk about macros and intermittent fasting without rolling her eyes. She even started packing us clean lunches for work. She didn't have to, but she did. That's Beth solid. Still, even with all the changes in my body, something inside me stayed flat. Like I was running on high-performance fuel but stuck in neutral. I told myself it was probably hormones or maybe burnout from work. Beth tried to help. She was affectionate, always quick with a kiss or a hand on my back. Emotionally tuned in. But I couldn't shake the weird numbness that followed me around, especially at home. It wasn't her fault. She hadn't changed. I had. The shift really began at my birthday party. Beth had thrown it for me at this sleek rooftop bar in downtown LA. Friends, coworkers, a couple people from Beth's school. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, hugging me like I just won a championship. I should have felt proud. But mostly, I felt like I was watching my own life from the outside. Then she showed up. Her name was Sierra. She had joined our company as a project director just 2 weeks prior. I'd only had one brief conversation with her in the office elevator. But that night, she walked straight up to me with a glass of wine and a smile that felt like it came with a secret. I almost didn't recognize you, she said, her eyes scanning me. Everyone talks about the new Grant. I can see what they mean. I laughed it off. I said something awkward about my diet. She laughed too, a warm, easy kind of laugh, and said, well, whatever you're doing, don't stop. She touched my arm lightly before walking off. It shouldn't have mattered. It was harmless. But the part of me that had been dull for months suddenly sparked. That flicker of being seen. Not for who I'd always been, but for who I was becoming. I didn't tell Beth about Sierra. There was nothing to tell. Not yet. But that week, Sierra and I bumped into each other more often. In the break room. In meetings. Our chats grew longer, stretched into post-meeting lingerings. She always asked questions that made me feel interesting. Wanted. She'd tilt her head and listen like my words mattered. And gradually, I started feeling more alive talking to her than I did walking through the front door of my own home. It scared me, but not enough to stop. It started slow. A few extra minutes by the coffee machine. A little back and forth about movies, books, music. Sierra always knew how to keep the conversation just personal enough. She asked how I liked my protein shakes one day, then told me about her divorce the next. Her voice had this way of softening when she talked to me, like I was the only person in the world who'd get it. By the end of the month, we were texting every night. At first, it was harmless stuff. Articles, memes, office jokes. But then it shifted. She'd text me at midnight about how lonely she felt in her new apartment. How weird it was not having someone to talk to at night. I'd respond without thinking, telling her I was up too. That I couldn't sleep either. I told myself I was being kind. Being a good coworker. Beth noticed. Of course she did. She's smarter than most people give her credit for. One night, after dinner, she sat down beside me on the couch and gently put her hand on my arm. Hey, she said. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you okay? Lately you've been elsewhere. I don't mean to push. I'm worried. I gave her the usual excuse, stress, deadlines, maybe my testosterone was off. She nodded, trying not to show the hurt in her eyes, and said, if you ever want to talk to someone about it, a therapist, maybe, I'd go with you. I nodded, said I'd think about it. But the truth was, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to fix whatever was going wrong with me, not when Sierra made me feel like nothing was wrong at all. 2 weeks later, we were at a regional aerospace conference in San Diego. Beth stayed home. She had state testing that week and couldn't get away. Sierra and I were both on the company roster. After the last panel, there was an after-party hosted in the hotel bar. Everyone was there at first, but the crowd thinned out fast. Around midnight, it was just us, a quiet booth in the corner, Dim lights, her legs stretched out toward mine. "I'm glad you came," she said, swirling the straw in her drink. "I feel like I only breathe around you lately." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. She leaned in slowly, like it was the most natural thing in the world, and kissed me. Soft, confident, familiar. And I didn't stop her. I should have. God, I knew I should have. But I didn't. We ended up in her room. The details blur in my mind, not from alcohol, but from guilt. The kind that starts during, not after. The next morning, I caught my reflection in the hotel mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked tired. And older, somehow. But Sierra? She just smiled sleepily and said, "You look lighter today." When I got home that night, Beth had made homemade chicken parm. She hugged me from behind and said she missed me. I could barely keep eye contact. The following days were worse. I started snapping at her over nothing: laundry, dishes, the way she tapped her pin during TV shows. She tried harder. She reached for my hand more. Sent me sweet midday texts like she used to when we were dating. But I kept pulling away. Every message from Sierra felt like oxygen. Every moment with Beth felt like pressure. I convinced myself I deserved happiness. That this new version of me, this fit, desirable, confident man, couldn't go back to the life I'd outgrown. What I didn't see then was that I wasn't growing at all. I was escaping. And I was taking down the one person who had never, ever stopped believing in me. 2 months into the affair, my sister Melissa came to visit. "Just a quick weekend trip," she said. It had been a while, and she wanted to check in. Beth was thrilled. She always got along well with Melissa. They had a way of teaming up to tease me about my inability to fold a fitted sheet or remember birthdays. For a moment, things felt normal again. Saturday afternoon, Beth went out to grab groceries, and Melissa and I sat on the back deck, nursing iced coffees in the sun. She was quiet for a while, then said, she told me. I blinked. "Told you what?" "That she's scared. That she feels like she's losing you." I didn't say anything. Melissa looked at me hard. "Grant, what the hell is going on?" I opened my mouth, ready to lie. Ready to blame stress, hormones, maybe some midlife crisis cliché. But I didn't. I just exhaled and shook my head. "She didn't do anything wrong," Melissa said. "You know that, right?" I nodded. I knew. That night, I lay awake next to Beth, staring at the ceiling fan. Her hand was resting lightly on my chest, the way it always did when she was asleep, like she was tethering me. And I thought about all the years we'd spent building this life together. The long nights when she helped me study for my master's. The way she took care of me when I had surgery on my back. The weekends she spent grading papers on the couch while I ranted about engine failures. I couldn't do this to her. Not anymore. Monday morning, I walked into the office and put in my resignation. I said it was for personal reasons, which wasn't a lie. The look on Sierra's face when I told her was a mix of disbelief and panic. "You're quitting?" she asked, crossing her arms in the break room, voice low. "I need to fix things at home," I said. Whatever this is, it has to stop." She looked at me like I had slapped her. "That's it. You're just done." "I have to be." I didn't wait for her response. I packed up my things, left my badge on the desk, and walked out. It felt like I was ripping off my own skin, but also like breathing for the first time in weeks. The next day, Sierra texted. Then again, she asked if we could meet. Just to talk. Just to get closure. I ignored the first few messages. But then she sent one that got to me. "I have some of your stuff. It's in a box. Just come by for 5 minutes." So I did. Beth had gone to visit her sister that afternoon, completely unaware. The house was quiet when I got back. I pulled into the driveway and found Sierra already sitting on the front steps, a cardboard box beside her. I was stunned. "You came here." "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "You wouldn't answer." I motioned to the box. "Thanks. I'll take that." She stood up slowly, stepping toward me. "Grant, please. Can we just talk for a second?" "I don't think that's a good idea. It's just 5 minutes. One last time. For closure." And that was my mistake. I should have said no. I should have taken the box and shut the door. But instead, I let her in. We went to the guest room, the one Beth used for grading papers, and sat on the edge of the bed. The conversation started tense, then quiet, then familiar. And before I knew it, her lips were on mine again. And I let it happen. It was just starting, clothes not even fully off, when the door creaked open. Beth stood there, holding a tray with 2 mugs of tea and a small plate of lemon cookies. She froze. Sierra gasped and scrambled off the bed. I stood there half-dressed, heart thudding in my ears. Beth's eyes moved from Sierra's open blouse to my bare chest, to the mugs trembling in her hands. I thought you were tired, she said softly. The tray slipped from her fingers. The mug shattered on the hardwood. And for the first time in our 20 years together, I saw something in Beth I'd never seen before. Rage. The sound of porcelain shattering seemed to freeze time. Beth stood there, hands empty, tea seeping into the hardwood. Her chest was rising and falling like she couldn't catch her breath. I opened my mouth to speak, to apologize, to explain, to say anything. But before I could, Sierra smoothed her blouse down and said with a smirk, "Well, this is awkward." Beth's head snapped toward her. "Get out." Sierra blinked. "Excuse me." Beth's voice cracked. "Get out of my house. Now." Sierra reached for her purse, but didn't move fast enough. In a blur, Beth lunged. It didn't look real at first. Beth, the calm one, the patient one, the woman who diffused screaming eighth graders on the daily, launched herself across the room like something feral. She grabbed Sierra's hair with both hands and yanked, hard. Sierra screamed, stumbling backward into the wall. I jumped in between them, trying to separate them, but Beth wasn't hearing reason. 20 years, Beth screamed, shoving me hard in the chest. "I gave you everything." Sierra tried to bolt, but Beth was on her again, slapping, pulling, shrieking. It was chaos. I grabbed Beth's arms and shouted her name over and over. Finally, I managed to get between them, breathing hard, holding Beth back. She was crying now, furious tears streaking her face. Sierra had fallen to the floor near the hallway, holding her head with both hands. There was blood. Not a lot, but enough. And just then, I heard it. A neighbor's voice outside. "Someone call the police." I looked out the front window. The curtains had shifted. Our front door had been cracked open. At least 3 neighbors were on the lawn, phones in hand, watching. 5 minutes later, the sirens came. 2 officers stormed into the house, guns holstered but hands on their belts, demanding everyone stay where they were. Sierra was sobbing now, sitting cross-legged on the guest room floor, cradling her head. "She attacked me," she cried, pointing at Beth. "She just lost it." Beth was trembling. She didn't argue, didn't protest, just stared at me. "Ma'am," one officer said gently, "I need you to come with me." Beth didn't move. I stepped forward. "Please, can't we just—" Another officer cut me off. "Sir, you need to back up. She's being detained for assault." They handcuffed her in our own living room, walked her past our wedding photos, past the school district awards, past the framed picture of our son's first day of college, which now hung crooked on the wall. Sierra was taken to the hospital for evaluation. Mild concussion, superficial injuries. Enough for a report. Beth was arrested, charged with aggravated assault. And me? I was left alone. Our kids, our 2 boys, arrived later that night after hearing from their aunt. I had to sit them down and explain what happened. I didn't go into detail. I couldn't. My older son, Caleb, just stared at me with disgust. "You cheated on her?" he said. "Here." I nodded, unable to speak. He stood up. "Don't ever contact me again." My youngest, Drew, didn't say a word, just walked out the door. News traveled fast. By morning, my phone was full of voicemails. Beth's parents, my parents, friends from work. Everyone wanted to know what happened. But I only remember one voice clearly, a man I didn't even recognize. "This is Ryan Sinclair," he said coldly. "I'm Sierra's husband." That was the moment my knees buckled. I didn't know she was married. She never said. "She's divorcing me," he said. "She told me everything. And don't worry, I'm telling everyone else too." He made good on that promise. By noon, the story was out. The affair, the fight, the arrest. My kids knew. My in-laws knew. My company knew. I didn't just blow up my marriage. I set fire to everything. And I was the one who struck the match. The story didn't stay quiet for long. By the end of the week, local blogs had picked it up. Well-known school principal arrested in domestic assault. That's how they worded it. No mention of me. No mention of Sierra. Just Beth, in handcuffs, her mugshot plastered online. Eyes swollen, hair pulled back hastily. And I was the reason. My parents stopped speaking to me immediately. My dad left a voicemail the day the article hit. "You disgraced this family one more time. Don't bother showing your face again." My mom didn't call at all. Beth's parents were worse. They sent me a certified letter. A formal notice that they were pursuing civil damages if I attempted to interfere in the proceedings. They blamed me for the media fallout, the legal bills, the trauma. And they weren't wrong. Our sons refused to come home. Caleb, our oldest, sent one email. Until mom is cleared and safe, I'm staying with her. Don't contact me again. You don't get to talk about love anymore. Even Drew, my quiet kid, stopped replying to texts. I tried calling once. He hung up. The trial began 6 weeks after the arrest. Beth had made bail and was placed under house arrest at her sister's. An ankle monitor. No visitors without clearance. She didn't want to see me anyway. I showed up in court every day, sitting in the second row behind the prosecution. Alone. I wasn't there for sympathy. I knew I'd burned that bridge. I came because I had to see what I'd done. I had to look it in the face. Sierra testified first. She wore a silk blouse and a cast on her wrist. Her voice trembled, soft and wounded, rehearsed. She told the court that she'd been assaulted without warning, that she came by to return a box of items from work and was ambushed in the guest room, that Beth had grabbed her by the hair, thrown her down, and screamed obscenities while hitting her. None of it was technically false, but it wasn't the whole story either. She didn't mention the affair, not until cross-examination, when the defense attorney forced it out. Were you involved in a romantic or physical relationship with the defendant's husband? The attorney asked. Sierra glanced toward me, then looked away. Yes, she whispered. But that's not why I came over. The gallery murmured. The judge pounded her gavel. Sierra's husband wasn't in the room, but his statement was entered into evidence. Confirmation of the affair, the lies, the betrayal. It was humiliating, but it got worse. Beth took the stand last. She looked empty, not angry, not sad, just exhausted, pale, small, like someone who hadn't slept in months. Her attorney asked her to recount the moment she walked into the guest room. Beth's voice cracked. I thought he was trying. I made tea. I made his favorite cookies. I wanted to talk. She paused, eyes brimming. And when I opened the door, he wasn't alone. Her whole body trembled, but she kept talking. She explained the anger, the shock, the betrayal, that she didn't plan to attack anyone, that her world shattered and she reacted. Stupidly, but honestly. Then she said something that gutted me. I was planning a vow renewal. For our 20th anniversary. A trip. A surprise. She choked back a sob. I had the tickets booked. A ceremony in Greece. He didn't know yet. I was going to tell him that night. The courtroom went still. I turned cold. Caleb stood up from the back row. He walked straight out, hands clenched. Drew followed. And that was the moment I finally broke. Not from the trial. Not from the headlines. But from watching the woman I betrayed cry in front of strangers, still trying to explain her love for a man who had destroyed her. Me. Beth didn't go to prison. The judge gave her 2 years of probation, anger management, and mandatory therapy. She was removed from her job as principal and placed on administrative leave indefinitely. But the worst part for her wasn't the court sentence. It was the silence from our sons. After the trial, they went with her to her sister's place. They never came home. I stayed in the house for a while, or what was left of it. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Every room reminded me of something I'd broken. Her coffee mug still sat in the sink. The picture frames were still on the walls, crooked from the police storming in that night. I couldn't even sleep in our bed. I stayed on the couch. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the licensing board. Due to the public nature of the scandal and internal ethics violations during my time at the company, including an undisclosed romantic relationship with a subordinate, my license was suspended pending further review. In other words, I was done. No more engineering. No more 6-figure salary. No more respect. I applied for jobs. Nobody called. The rumor mill did what it always does, quietly and completely. I became the guy from that case. The one who had the affair, caused the scandal, and ruined a respected educator's career. Eventually, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner's in Torrance. Peeling paint. Low ceilings. The kind of place where no one asked questions because everyone had their own mess to deal with. I took whatever jobs I could find. Seasonal inventory shifts. Weekend cashier gigs. I worked retail over the holidays and sorted packages at dawn. Once, I saw one of my old colleagues at Target while I was restocking shampoo. He looked at me like I was a ghost. The first time I mailed a letter to Beth, I wrote 5 drafts. I kept it short. I said I was sorry. I told her I never stopped loving her. I told her I understood if she never wanted to see me again. The letter was returned unopened. Refused by recipient stamped in red on the envelope. I sent 3 more over the next year. Same result. I tried writing the boys too. I poured everything into those letters. No excuses. Just honesty. Pain. Shame. Memories from when they were little. I told them I still had the blanket Drew used to drag everywhere. That Caleb's first bike helmet was still in the garage when I moved out. They didn't respond. My therapist, the one I started seeing once I realized I was thinking about drinking just to feel something, didn't pull any punches. He was in his late 60s, straight shooter, sharp eyes behind wireframe glasses. One afternoon, I told him I didn't understand why I felt so empty when I had given everything to that marriage. He shook his head. You didn't treat her like a partner, he said. You treated her like furniture. Always there. Always expected. Never truly seen. I flinched. I was just lonely. He leaned forward. No. You were entitled. There's a difference. That word, entitled, echoed for days. He was right. I hadn't cheated because I was unhappy. I cheated because I wanted more, without having to give more. Because I thought I deserved something exciting for being a decent man. Because I thought Beth would always be there, no matter what. But now? Now I was just a man alone in a cold apartment, sorting toothpaste in aisle 5, writing letters to a family that no longer existed. Years passed. Not quickly. Not cleanly. Time dragged the way grief does, slow, heavy, without milestones to mark its passing. My beard grew gray at the chin. My hands stayed rough from the loading docks. I kept going to therapy. Not because I believed it would fix me, but because it was the only place where I didn't have to pretend I was okay. Then, one November, I got a text from Caleb. Just 5 words. Drew wants to see you. I stared at the screen for almost 10 minutes, not sure if it was real. When I finally replied, when and where, Caleb sent me a location. A small diner near Cal State Long Beach. The same place I used to take them for pancakes after soccer practice. Drew was taller than I remembered. His voice deeper. He sat across from me in a flannel shirt, hands folded in front of him, shoulders stiff. He didn't hug me. He didn't smile. But he was there. And that alone nearly broke me. We talked. Not about the past, not directly. He told me about school. His part-time job. How he wanted to study graphic design. I listened. Asked questions. Fought every urge to apologize and spill out everything at once. That wasn't what he needed. What he needed was a dad who could sit across from him and shut up long enough to earn a second chance. After that, he came around once a month. Caleb joined him eventually. At first, they came in together, like it was some kind of supervised visit. We'd sit in the cramped apartment, eat takeout, talk about safe topics, school, work, movies. They never mentioned their mother. I never brought her up. I started cooking again. Tried new recipes. Bought Real dishes. Each time they visited, the place felt a little less like exile and a little more like something human. One evening, close to Christmas, Drew told a joke. It wasn't even that funny. Something about one of his professors and a broken projector. But I laughed. Not politely. Not with guilt. I really laughed. And for a second, Drew grinned. Caleb didn't laugh, but he didn't leave either. That was the first time I thought maybe, just maybe, the door wasn't fully closed. One quiet Sunday afternoon, while we were cleaning up, Drew mentioned something offhand. Mom tried to visit you once, he said. A couple times, actually. She wrote, too. Letters. Years ago. I stopped drying the plate in my hand. She did. Yeah, he shrugged. Said she couldn't hate you forever. Said she just wanted to know if you were okay. I didn't know what to say. That night, I told my therapist. He asked me how that made me feel. Like I can't breathe, I said. Like I still love her. And I still hate myself. He nodded. That's probably true. Both things. I stared at the ceiling that night, imagining Beth sitting down to write those letters. What she might have said. Whether she cried. Whether she hoped. And I realized something awful. I wanted to hear her voice, just not yet. Because even after all this time, the sound of her might still be too much. Because love, when twisted by guilt, doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just lingers. The twins turned 18 in June. Drew and Caleb had grown into 2 completely different people. Caleb was quiet and serious, all sharp edges and careful distance. Drew was lighter, a little more open, but still cautious. They invited me to dinner for their birthday, which floored me. Just us, Drew said. Low-key. I bought steaks, baked a cake from scratch, even pulled out candles. We ate on my tiny balcony. It was awkward and quiet, and somehow perfect. They let me take a picture at the end. Just the three of us, standing close. I printed it the next day and put it on my fridge. A week later, Drew texted me. We're doing something at Mom's place the day before. Just a few friends. Chill vibe. I read it twice. My stomach sank a little, but I typed back. Sounds good. Have fun. Thanks for letting me know. I thought that would be the end of it. But then I ran into Nate, an old work friend, at the hardware store. He looked at me like he was about to say something and then hesitated. You and Beth, back together? I frowned. What? He raised an eyebrow. Oh, guess not. Just heard she mentioned something about maybe seeing where things go. After the birthday stuff. I didn't respond. I just nodded slowly and paid for my cock. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head. Beth thinking there was something to rekindle. Beth talking about us as if we could ever go back. But I had nothing left to give her. Not forgiveness. Not rage. Just disappointment. The next day, the evening of the party at her place, I was at my brother Evan's house, where I'd been crashing for a few nights while we did drywall repairs at my apartment. I was just settling in when headlights flashed through the front window. Beth. She stepped out of her car holding something. A worn manila folder, thick and bent at the corners. Evan raised an eyebrow from the kitchen. You want me to step out? I shook my head. No. Stay close. She rang the doorbell. I opened it slowly. Beth looked thinner than I remembered. Hair pulled back in a low bun. No makeup, just raw and real and shaking slightly. I won't stay long, she said. I wanted you to have these. She handed me the folder. Inside were all the letters she'd written and I'd never seen. The ones she sent before I moved apartments, before I cut contact. She was crying now. I don't want to change your life. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. That I forgive you. That I never stopped hoping. I stared at her. Then I handed the folder back. Beth, I said, calm and tired, I'm glad you found peace. But I can't be part of it. Her face collapsed. She tried to speak, but I gently closed the door. Behind me, through the glass, I heard her sobbing. Drew and Caleb had seen everything. They were parked across the street, still in their party clothes. I caught their eyes as I turned around. Drew met my gaze. Caleb looked down. Neither of them said a word. They just walked inside and quietly closed the door behind me. It wasn't supposed to be public. But a few weeks after the scene outside Uncle Evan's house, someone found it, Beth's anonymous post on a divorce support forum. Long and emotional. Full of regret. She didn't name names, but anyone who knew our family would know it was about us. She wrote about how she'd never stopped loving my dad. How the affair wasn't really about the other woman, but about his broken heart. How she still believed reconciliation was possible for the boys, if nothing else. Caleb saw it first. I remember finding him in the living room, fist clenched around his phone, jaw locked. He didn't speak for a long time. Just paced. Then, finally, he sat down and opened his laptop. He didn't say what he was writing, but I saw the title at the top of the document. A son's response. I didn't read it until he posted it. It wasn't angry. Not like I expected. It was something worse. Cold, measured, devastating. He began by explaining how he grew up seeing Dad as quiet, steady, boring even. How we rolled our eyes at his routines, his gym habit, the way he triple-checked the locks every night. But then Caleb wrote. When Dad left, I thought he was weak. When I saw what he survived, the guilt, the shame, the silence we all gave him, I realized he was stronger than any man I've ever met. He didn't excuse the affair. He didn't pretend it hadn't wrecked our family. But he pointed out how Dad took every hit. Never blamed anyone. Never lashed out. Just took it. Accepted the consequences. He compared that to Mom's post, her way of painting herself as both victim and hero. My mother was betrayed. That part is true. But in the years since, she's rewritten the story so many times that she doesn't seem to notice she's still holding the pen. Then came the part that made my throat close up. Dad didn't ask us to forgive him. He never once demanded we take his side. He just stayed still, stayed open, and let us come back when we were ready. That's love. Not ownership. Not performance. Not a public diary begging for sympathy. He talked about Beth's letters, how he knew she had sent them, how she cried at every court hearing, but also how she made everything about her redemption, not Dad's healing. And finally, he ended with this. To the woman who raised me, please stop. Stop trying to stitch the past together into something whole. We're not broken because of what happened. We're broken because no one let it stay broken. We needed space. You gave us a narrative. There's not going to be a reunion. Not with Dad. Not with the family that existed before. And honestly, that's okay. Some bridges need to burn so no one ever tries to cross them again. We love you, but we don't trust you. Not with the story. Not with our memories. And not with him. It went viral in our town. People whispered. Teachers, neighbors, extended family, everyone knew. Mom didn't reply publicly. She didn't need to. Because Caleb's words were final. Not cruel. Not petty. Just clear. And more honest than anything I could have said. For the first time, I didn't feel like the villain or the victim. Just the father of a son who finally understood everything.